Shall we start? And we have the 5 speakers here, and then intellectuals and traditional popular revolt is the theme of this session. So first we will invite Professor Lee Jong-ok from Daegu Catholic University, South Korea. She will talk us about the grassroots practices of Korean intellectuals. Jong-ok, please.
Thank you, Srecko, and thank you, Tung-yi has disappeared. Thank you all to providing me such a precious space to share our experience with all of you. But unfortunately, I caught a serious cold, and also these days, I think like our South African colleagues has presented this morning, Korea has been a part of a good companion of neoliberal order for last 2 decades. Because of that, so many demonstrations and so many activism were so active. So because of that, it is very difficult to follow up those kind of events and changes. So I just share briefly the theme that I was asked to share. So it was asked by the organizer, the grassroots practice of Korean intellectuals. I have taken the picture. It was 2008 during the government declaration of the deregulation of beef import control. So maybe we can count how many, but most of the Koreans has come out to say no. So that is the picture. And recently, just before I came, even until now, every day, most of the students and most of the people has come out to say no on the free trade agreement between Korea and the United States. Because it has been prepared for the last 5 years, but they didn't know what really means that agreement will affect to the ordinary people's lives. So after your so-called intellectuals, hardworking, even the parliament members, they didn't know what really happened after that agreement have passed. But some of the democratic lawyers and very few economists and some of the intellectuals did the hard work, because always the devils are in details. So especially for in those kind of free trade agreement, there is very slight punctuation even has a big meaning. So the people translators has organized their own translations. So they corrected more than 200 mistranslations which were done by government officials. So because of that, they reappeared the parliamentary procedure process. But finally, the parliament has passed that agreement in spite of that huge opposition. So because of that, most of the young people, because they realized what it really means to their future, so they went out to the rally. So just before I came here, one young university girl, it was one of the coldest winter day, and the police has shut the water shot the water pour to the demonstrators in the cold night. So she was shot, and she was spontaneously prisoned. In the whole body was prisoned. So that kind of things has happened every day. So maybe my serious cold is related with that kind of exposure. But anyway, so it was the brief regulation. The Korean social activism and the social movement is not actually initiated by intellectuals, as you see from the photos. It was mostly from the people themselves first. For example, farmers and the workers, they are on the forefront usually, even from the National Liberation Movement and the anti-dictatorship movement. We have and also this kind of anti-free trade agreement. All the people, we don't know why, but the people were so strong to stood up against the government policy on such a way. Usually, in other cases, the intellectuals will guide the people, but in Korean case, the farmers and the workers are more stronger than the intellectuals, so they were always on the forefront. And then, who are the intellectuals? And also, I will share a recent story again. One women worker, she's not actually a worker, but she was the workers' organization activity supporter, and many people thought globalization is inevitable in such a way. So they thought many of Korean multinational companies also try to relocate to light their expenses, especially the personnel expenses. So one of the big heavy industry has decided to relocate their factory into Manila. So the initial process, they dismissed several worker leaders first to soothe out the workers' resistances. So at first they thought it is even the government people and the intellectuals and everybody thought it is inevitable. But the one woman, middle-aged women like me, and one day she climbed up, maybe you can see from the media, climbed up the high train tower. It is only 1 square meter is more than 35 meter high. So she stayed there for 6 months. So finally, because of her, all over the country, most of the people getting together to support her, whether she can survive or not. But finally, the government can intervene, and the company also withdraw the decision of their dismissal, and also we also during those kind of process we had a serious question: why do they the justification they raise for the relocation, whether it is really justifiable or not, because they already had a big margin of profit, but their justification of relocation is not really because of expenses, but because of M&A, new M&A process. So in that sense, it is quite different. So people's understanding on globalization in innocent way is far different from the behind the bargain. So some of the behind the level of bargaining were exposed because of war struggle. So, but anyway, in Korea, strong activism are really combined with so-called intellectuals participation. So I'm also working with some of our participants are working with ARENA, Asia Regional Exchange for New Alternatives. So it was composed of 92 Asian organic intellectuals. So we call it organic intellectuals who have supported the social movements. So Tung-yi and Seiko and some of us are old members of ARENA. So we use the terminology of organic intellectuals. But in Korean case, we also have organic intellectuals. The role of organic intellectuals is very powerful, but most of the space of intellectuals are located happen to be university. So I cannot say longer, but our geopolitical positioning is far eastern part. So most of our ideological discourse coming from the Western Hemisphere arrived very late. So we were very Cold War framework of control after Korean War. So because of that, even holding a book on the United States, Didas for Stated Social Revolution, but her book is very reformist and right-wing approaches, but the title is Social Revolution, so only holding that kind of book was a good excuse to be imprisoned during my student days. So because of that too tighter surveillance against ideological control during the Cold War framework, students go underground to do their own studying for their own understanding of alternative understanding of the social structure. So it is not even Marxism, but more critical thinking on the existing society. In the late 80s, some of the students, program students, can understand the very vulgar part of Marxism. Not all, but more activist understanding of Marxism. So it was, that small segment of Marxism has overridden the whole student societies in underground level. But underground became more and more mainstreamization. So more than 1 million students every year, they joined their own voluntary study groups, and they almost became activists and also intellectuals. So voluntary trained activists, and because of their own vulgar understanding of Marxism, and sometimes combined with Maoism also, but their own understanding of Maoism, and it's a kind of a graduate course to go to factory, like Chinese cultural revolutionaries. So to go to factory and farm working, it's a kind of their own curriculum to do that. So it has happened in the 80s. So, but that 80s, their mentalities to deeply into engage in social responsibility and social emancipation has deeply affected their own afterlife. That now they became 40s, and some of them became parliament members, and some of them became responsible groups in our societies. So that was the very special characteristic of Korean intellectuals background, so still they have that kind of remnant after this neoliberal order. But now the real problem is that we should differentiate the intellectuals and the professionals. So many of free trade related jargons are very highly technical. So even the ordinary people and the ordinary journalists couldn't understand what that really means. So we need some kind of real translator, the real professional who can translate that highly technical jargon into everyday language, and the real translator should interpret what it really means, what it will affect their lives also. So that kind of intellectuals, professionals are very much in short. Most of government policy, new developmentalist policies are based on some economist justification and calculation and modeling. But it is we want to some kind of a debunking those kind of modeling. So sometimes if we accept this project, maybe it will guarantee more than 66% sustained growth or something, but nobody can prove whether it is. Nobody can prove whether it is really based or not. So in that sense, most of important policy backed up by that kind of a professional jargon should be retranslated by the people's perspective. So that was we need other types of professionals. So I think this kind of competition became more and more serious these days. So now we are, for example, in 80s, many of students try to be like a farmer, try to be like a factory worker. So that was the way to go forward. But in these days, in 2011, we thought even everyday workers try to be like economists, try to be like a scientist. They should understand the whole process of this over-financialization of economy. So that was our target, but so it's different way of. So I don't know whether I can catch the theme properly, but that is the situation. Thank you.
It's been clear view and what really happening in South Korea. Today our speakers really came from the different part of the world. Second speaker we want to invite Srecko, is correct? Srecko Horvat from Croatia.
Hello everyone. So as you can see, I'm probably the only one at this conference who doesn't have a PowerPoint presentation. So sorry to everyone, but I will try to compensate it with my short presentation. Another remark before I start, as was said, I come from Croatia, but I won't speak about the Croatian experience of popular movements, which is really strong in the last 2 or 3 years, especially also the student movement. But unlike South Korea, we don't have the Gramscian organic intellectuals. Most of them are liberals and social democrats and so on. And the reason why I won't speak about Croatia is that it's a pretty ridiculous country compared to India or China with only 4.5 million inhabitants. So I will try to give, let's say, a cognitive mapping of the general situation. The title of my presentation is Direct Democracy from Europe to Wall Street and Back, and I will start with an anecdote. So this summer I had a chance to be in Paris to meet the so-called Darth Vader of the current political thought, the guru of the American neocons and the guru of the end of history. That's Francis Fukuyama. So we met in Paris and we spoke about his new book, The Origins of Political Order, which is very interesting because he gives a sort of a revision of the end of history. So his new thesis is the end of history didn't come yet, and he gives two reasons for this. It's very interesting and it will bring us into the topic of my presentation. So the first reason why the end of history didn't arrive yet is because of something Fukuyama, together with his teacher Samuel Huntington, calls possibilities of decline, which means that democracy can regress from inside. The example Fukuyama gave is the state of European Union and the rise of xenophobia. It's very interesting that it was a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy because he gave this remark only 1 week before the Norwegian massacre. And the second reason why he now believes that the end of history didn't arrive yet is because of China. Fukuyama claims, I asked him, do you still believe that terrorism is the main threat to the global order? And Fukuyama said, no, I don't believe in terrorism anymore, it's China. Then I asked him, yeah, things will get even more interesting. Then I asked him, okay, why? And then he said China is the best example that the marriage between capitalism and democracy is over. So now you have capitalism and a sort of strong state authoritarian regime. Then, next week after the interview was published in an influential Croatian weekly, the Chinese ambassador in Croatia replied, and he published a big reaction to Fukuyama's claim that China is even more dangerous than Osama bin Laden. But the answer of the Chinese ambassador was even more funnier than Fukuyama. The big title in the weekly was Fukuyama is a banana man, and obviously that's something which is very famous in China. I'm not sure. Maybe someone from China should tell us. The Chinese ambassador told us that Chinese call banana man people who are outside yellow and inside white. So actually what he was claiming is that Fukuyama is an Asian from outside, but from inside he's American. I would put this polemic between Fukuyama and the Chinese ambassador upside down because I think also Fukuyama is wrong and the Chinese ambassador is wrong. Yes, Fukuyama is right to claim that China challenges the traditional marriage between capitalism and democracy. But on the other hand, I think the Chinese ambassador is wrong to claim that Fukuyama is from outside yellow and from inside white. To stick to this racist remark, I would say Fukuyama is Asian also from outside and from inside. What do I mean by this? This is the main thesis of my presentation. I think that Fukuyama is also wrong when he claims that liberal Western democracies are going into another direction than the Chinese democracy. And I think what we witness today is exactly capitalism which goes into the direction of China. So just take the recent trends from Croatia, from Europe. The first one is Mario Draghi. Mario Draghi was elected as the president of the European Central Bank just a few weeks ago or 1 month ago. But what is interesting, Mario Draghi was a leading person in Goldman Sachs Bank. And exactly, which is even more interesting, at the same time when Goldman Sachs was falsifying, yeah, thanks. Falsifying the state of financial system of Greece before Greece entered to the Eurozone. Or take another example, the current Prime Minister of Italy, Mario Monti. He was again a very important person from Goldman Sachs. Or take another example, Papademos, the current Prime Minister of Greece. He was again a banker before he became a prime minister. So in this way we can see that also Europe is going in the way of technocracy. I don't say it's the same as China, but I will try to explain why I think this is dangerous. Exactly the last name of Papademos is very interesting because if we play with an etymology with his name, we come to the following conclusion. Papademos can be read as Papademos, goodbye the people, and on the other hand it can be read also as Papademos, like the father of the people. So at the same time you have and I think exactly this is what it is all about in Europe today, because exactly this is the best description of the state of Europe. Instead of democracy, we have technocracy, and here I think the French philosopher Alain Badiou is right when he says the biggest enemy today is not capitalism anymore, but democracy. Of course, this sounds very bizarre, this thesis, but when Badiou said, what Badiou means with this claim is that the biggest danger is the illusion of democracy, and what Badiou says is we don't write nationalist, this is a quote, hate text like Milosevic, the Serbian dictator, but at the same time we let millions to die of AIDS. I think Patrick Bond had a nice example with AIDS, and that they in South Africa they need like $15,000 per year just to get medicine for AIDS. Badiou continues, we don't kill each other with all the cruelty like the people in Rwanda, but our planes kill civilians in Afghanistan without leaving blood on our hands. So I think this is the perversion of democracy, and I would go even one step further than Badiou and say we congratulate the Arab people for their fight for democracy and so on, but at the same time we don't allow the Greek people to make a referendum, for example. At the same time we criticize the financial sector, but at the same time bankers from Goldman Sachs are still ruling Europe. Like Obama, we even congratulate to the Occupy movement, but at the same time we don't change the system and exactly the opposite, we bail out the banks. So to come to the title of my presentation, I'm fast because I have like 7 minutes or something like that. To come to the title of my presentation, Direct Democracy from Europe to Wall Street and Back, I think 2011 was a crucial year for popular movements, and I would even claim it achieved even more than the World Social Forum in the last years. I would even claim that 2011, starting with the Arab Spring and ending, maybe not ending, with Wall Street movement is what Porto Alegre in 2001 was for the next decade. So I think 2011 is as important as Porto Alegre was for 2001. It all started with the Arab Spring, and it came back like a boomerang in the Occupy Wall Street movement. I had a chance to be in Zuccotti Park 2 months ago. I came there especially because of the Occupy movement and spent there like 10 days and were there with the demonstrators all the days and so on. And I think there are at least, and I was also in Tahrir before the revolution started, and I think there are at least two characteristics which are similar in all these cases, and also similar with the Indignados in Spain, similar with the movement in Greece, similar with the G1000 movement in Belgium, similar with some movements in Croatia and so on. The first characteristics is that all this movement from 2011 named the enemy. So it's not only capitalism, it's democracy, the illusion of democracy. And how they fight against this, it's direct democracy. So in Occupy Wall Street movement in Zuccotti Park, you had people who were not only camping there, but each night they had something they called General Assembly. Beside the General Assembly, they had like 30 different working groups. For example, a lawyer working group, which were reading amendments and trying to change some laws. They have like working groups where bankers and former brokers took part and so on. And what was also interesting that during the General Assembly, everyone could decide where the movement would take the other step. What is interesting, they also had some sort of organic intellectuals. You had Naomi Klein, Zizek, Spivak, Stiglitz, and all other usual suspects there. But what is even more interesting are the last actions they performed in the last days. So 1 or 2 weeks ago, they started to occupy houses. because as you probably know, they cannot stay at Suboti Park anymore. So what they do now is to occupy houses which were occupied by the banks, because the people were thrown out of the houses, and now no one uses the houses. So the Occupy movement occupies the houses now. And the last action, I just read it today in The Guardian, is they occupy several ports on the west coast, like 5 or 6 or so. So we can see, beside direct democracy, they also do direct action. And the other characteristics of these movements, I would say it's even a characteristic for the Arab Spring, is that they finally found the real enemy, and this is the financial system. I think Pedro Paez already mentioned in his lecture an interesting result. From Zurich Institute, they made an investigation into the famous Orbis database from 2007, and among, I don't know, 300,000 transnational corporations, they extracted 50 corporations which actually rule the world. And what is interesting, among the 50 transnational corporations, there are at least 30 banks. Deutsche Bank, Morgan Chase, UBS from Switzerland, and so on. Of course, this is no news at all. Those who read Lenin and imperialism as the high stage of capitalism already know that Lenin took also Deutsche Bank as the example of monopoly capitalism. But what is interesting is that also this result, these scientists show that the people from Occupy Wall Street are in a way right. So to conclude very soon, what different movements from Tunisia and Egypt, Greece, Spain, Croatia to Wall Street show is, on the one hand, this practice of direct democracy. I could go, if I had time, I would go into detail about practices also in Croatia, where the last 2 or 3 years we have a really big student movement with direct democracy, general assemblies every day, and so on. But there is no time, unfortunately, neither time to explain the differences between Occupy Wall Street, Greece, Indignados, and so on. And on the other hand, what the movements show is exactly that the marriage between capitalism and democracy is over, and now the world is really going into, especially the European Union today, is really going into the direction of a new marriage between capitalism and technocracy, in a way into the direction of China, where actually the state is helping the neoliberalism. So you have this paradox that neoliberalism isn't neoliberalism anymore, or to put it even a more provocative question, did neoliberalism ever exist in this way, or is it just theory? So as I started with an anecdote, I will end with an anecdote. Why I think 2011 was really is really the year which will in a way mark the whole next decade. I think it's really true, and again, there is no time to go into detail, but it remembered me of our friend and comrade Samir Amin, who, when he optimistically in Zagreb 1 year ago talked about the revolution, the new society, new movements, and so on, then someone from the audience posed a seemingly provocative question and asked him, "Okay, this is really beautiful. We need a new society, but please, could you tell us when will this revolution finally come?" And then Samir Amin answered, "Very, very soon." But added something very important. But don't forget, I'm an Egyptian. For us, 200 or 300 years is a relative thing. So, to finally conclude, I don't think we will need 200 or 300 years. I think things are really moving pretty fast, and especially some facts show into the direction that the time is already come. For example, the people from Occupy Wall Street movement stated on their website that Tahrir Square was their inspiration. If you have followed the protests in Tel Aviv, you could have seen people on the squares who had really big transparents showing "Walk like an Egyptian." So something incredible happened. You also had during February on Tahrir Square cop Coptic Christians and Muslims who were praying together, and such things which were like only a few years ago unimaginable really happened. So thanks a lot. I hope I wasn't too fast, but
Thank you, Srecko. I'm sorry that I'm really doing the very bureaucratic way.
so I still have 5 minutes.
Anyway, I will have that 10 or 15 minutes, some kind of interactions later, so that please tell us more. We have still have the time left. Okay, next we will invite Mr. WeiRan from Beijing University. He's going to talk about the humanist traditions in Latin America.
So I have a detailed title I'll show later. So first of all, I should introduce myself. My name is WeiRan. My Spanish name is Fernando. Well, maybe I'm the unique guy to show something beyond China. So but it's a field my study. So you can see Ernesto is here, and we have Jorge and Victor. Maybe I'm not qualified representative of Latin America, but I try to do my best to tell something of my study. Also, it's now a part of my dissertation about New Latin American cinema. So, New Latin American culture is New Latin American cinema is a special cultural field to express humanism and the local moral anxiety of Latin American intellectuals during 1960s to 1980s. While here, I will offer a close reading of a very brief documentary, Prayer for Marilyn Monroe, Scream in La Habana, in 1984, directed by Marisol Trujillo, Marian Taravera, y Pepin Rolicos. So this film, I will show some clips, is adapted from Nicaragua poem, and we know you know that famous guy is also is a cultural minister in revolutionary government, Ernesto Cardenal. According to my research, NLAC, New Latin American cinema scholars, never paid special attention to this brave documentary before. So I will give my own interpretation that is filmmakers of New Latin American cinema reconstructed the relationship between viewers, cinema, and popular culture, especially through this emotion and through a new method of affective appeals. So can show the beginning of the short documentary is just 7 minutes, but I will show you the first 1 minute, I think. Yes. Yeah, you can see that for a rest for this tough conference here. I hope it's coming. We are editing this film sometime. But you can just open the media player. No. So you just try it. I will continue my presentation. So the beginning of the film is suspenseful music and this disturbing murmurs in English, and in the black and white image, we saw the Marilyn Monroe appears in every official party with A-list celebrities. Here is a stereotypical understanding of Hollywood culture or cinema culture of America could be found here. The laughter of Monroe is a song of siren of capitalism, and her body is an evil incarnation of the consumerism. After the opening critic, Linkage presenta. Linkage is Instituto Cinemático de Arte de Oh, okay. Can we do that? Or?
You speak for it.
Okay, you can get it. Oh, whatever you want. Okay. So Linkage is Instituto Cinemático, the cinematic institution of Cuba, and we see a hardcore pornographic movie clip and the famous nude picture of the American super idol from the Playboy magazine is shown fragmentally. First her knees, and then the abdomen and the breast and the fingers. The fragmentation of the body implies the Hollywood cinema women are losing their holiness, just become the organs and spectators. And then we hear the words of Cardinal, Lord, accept this girl, called Marilyn Monroe, throughout the world, though that was not her name, but you know her real name, that of often the rich and nine, the schoolgirls who tried to kill herself when aged 16, and who now goes into your present without makeup, without her prize agent, without her photographs or signing photographs, lonely as astronaut facing the darkness of outer space. In this moment, the face of Monroe in the news picture changes into the head of African child who is dying by illness or hunger. The viewers is facing a new possibility, perhaps the famous sex symbol of the naked body, which signified erotica or flirtation, could also reduce to a dead naked human corpse drifts in the universe to the arms of God. The following section is completed, structured around the dream of Monroe. We heard this verse again, so we have to read it. When a girl, she dreams that she was naked in a church, according to Time magazine, standing in front of a prostrate multitude, heads to the ground, and had to walk on tiptoe toward the heads. You know our dreams better than all the psychiatrist, church, house, or cave. All represent the safety of the womb, but also something more. Since the dream was printed in the Time magazine, so the possible interpretation implied that the adult Monroe could become a superstar or icon of the 20th century. And the follows and all the people around her, beside her, was admirers or followers. Cardinal gave us another interpretation, the mass of heads in the darkness below the beam to the screen. But we will find the tension between the verses and the pictures in the documentary. We didn't see the audience in the cinema, but the people knocked down by the water cannon. In other words, the people trapped by the cultural imperialism and the ones facing the violence led by the state apparatus are suffering in the same destiny. This assumption will be approved by the coming up newsreel. The mass of heads by which Monroe has to walk on tiptoe are represented in the documentary as headless bodies or the heads cut down in violence committed by the imperialism. In Latin America, we saw the flag of Nicaraguan Revolution, and in Asia, we saw the WeiRan characteristic of the children, and the whole third world. The groups of bombardment aircrafts and passing by the logo of 21st century studio verifies unmistakable clearly that the ideological aggression and its territory aggression are homogeneous. Just in this moment, the verses read, but the temple isn't the audience of 20th century Fox. The temple of marble or God, of God, is a temple of her body, in which the Son of Man stands whip in hand and driven out the money changer of 20th century Fox, who made your heart's prayer a den of thieves. In the dark place, those people who are forcing to lay down on the ground are not just the movie viewers, but also the victim in the third world, which is inside of the first world. Besides, the body of Monroe is not destined to be erotic object. The Son of Man will claim the commercial value, and the female body could be returned to the sacred temple. The cinema could be transformed. The cinema could transform back into the mega of the prayers. Using the rhetoric of the Catholic ethics, the documentary reconfirms the promise that La Revolution Cubana will overthrow the hegemonic status of commercial cinema. Following the logic of narrative, the audience will regard the bloodshed conflicts happening in all the world, not just as the fires in neighborhood, but emerged aliens of the Danes de la Dela. A new affective connection between the audience and the materials of the new or colonialism is built up. With this affective connection, people obtained the moral attitude to renew the image of Venezuela. The lamp dissolved of the face of American. Okay, finish quickly. Okay. The face of American actress and the third world data was already surpassed by the innovation of dependence theory, which argues consumerism, fetishism, moral looseness within the empire causes bitterness in the third world. The montage suggests the infrastructure which transformed the image of Merle into the illusion of technicolor reality, meanwhile produced a daily tragedy among America. So, no, nothing. You can imagine that. Yeah, it's better than, maybe it's better one. About 100 people imagine that and get it. Okay. So, just as Percy said, Lord, in this world, contaminate equally by radioactive and sin, surely you will not blame a shop girl. What could be blamed is modernization project, the Cold War and post-Cold War area in the name of development and progress. Of course, the cinematic industry, the train-making factory, is included in this huge project. Therefore, the point put on such prayer, forgive her, Lord, and likewise all of us for this our 20th century and this huge super production in the whole making we all share. From this point, this documentary starts its own reflection on film industry. The personality of Merle also could be a kind of structure inside of the cinematic industry. Here's another verse. Something they will show up. Maybe we can show the last part of the documentary. Oh, right. Okay. So the personality of Merle also could be a kind of structure inside the cinema industry. Remember Lord, her increasing terror of the camera and the hinges of the makeup, yet insistence on being newly made up for every scene, and how the terror grows and how her impunctuality at the studios grow. In the last part of her life, Merle almost never arrived at studios in time. We all know that. According to some psychoanalysts, this stemmed from her extremely confidence, and she needs the intense concern from other people all the time. And here, according to Lingnan, the filmmakers, this hatred is a critic to Hollywood cinema and reason of her self-destroy. The film ended without a final kiss. We found her dead in body, hand on telephone, and the detectives knew not whom she was about to call. It was though someone had dealt it, the only friend was, and here a pre-called type just saying wrong number, wrong number, wrong number. Or like someone wounded by the gunster and could not reach out towards the unconnected phone. Lord, whosoever it may have been she was going to call, but not, or perhaps not one at all, or someone not named in the Los Angeles dictionary, Lord, answer the phone. So the last phrase of the film is tu contesta tú el teléfono. Es más fuerte parte frase en ese documentario. In the last chapter of the documentary, we saw the face of Merle transformed seasonally into the newborn infant. The point we should pay attention is when the police took the corpse of Merle outside her apartment. Two graveyard workers were holding a child coffin. Hence, the image of Merle has completely from the sound of siren into the embodiment of innocence. The symbol of sex and victim in Hollywood cinema system and harmonic culture for the first time is turned into the subject who required conversation with God and the reality and love the whole world had promised to give her. In this short documentary, which is probably shown before a long feature film in one of the cinemas in La La in the year 1984, Marilyn Monroe is, for that moment, become the representative of the Danes of the people. In the context of New Latin American cinema or Latin American leftist culture, Oración por Marilyn Monroe is perhaps somewhat a rare case. Perhaps its special perspective comes from the personal religion experience of Emesto Cardinal, a priest of liberation theology. But I will argue that the creative and the reconstruction of this documentary of U.S. cinema culture of this documentary reveals common characteristic of Cuban revolutionary cinema. By this I mean, okay, we finally see this simple picture. Film were not just commodity, or emotion not just commodity. Revolution has a power to break through the technicolor reality. In other words, this film represents the cultural creativity of Cuban cinema. You can just put the last part, I think. Can you please use? Where? Yeah, this is the last part that I showed to you. Right. The work of translation, I mean the affective transformation, needs a function of affective work. First, it requires awareness and sympathy for the individual situation of Marilyn, and then establish the structural connection between her and the rest of the earth, and finally goes beyond so-called impossibility of collectivity in the post-capitalism coins by Frederick Jackson. In that moment, we got on the telephone, a new ethics and new reduction has attempted possibility to be realized. If we compare the recitation of this poem by Mr. Daegu himself in Colombian Medellin Poetry Festival, here we can feel the role of religion in revolution is different in Latin American countries. Religion is included in Nicaraguan Revolution and being by its exclusion from Cuban Revolution. Here the ending of the prayer from Revelo during the section gives place on the telephone yourself. You can see the image of people in the square hold their hands together and raise highly, and we saw the kids in the hands of the baby and these children in the ministry, and make a symbol of the cross. Now we can see the real connection means the articulation between people and revolution, reply on recognition between the suffered people, so it stems from the redemption passion. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Finally, we got to sorry we go rush to another fourth Tung-yi from Lingnan University. It's going to talk about colonialism.